Back in 2023, press for Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney's rom-com Anyone But You became mired in controversy and rumors about both stars having an affair with each other, unbeknownst to both of their long-term partners. And now, both Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney are single. Perhaps Anyone But You was a linchpin for the downfall of both of their relationships. If we're to listen to the testimony of Glenn Powell's ex-girlfriend of 4 years, it definitely had something to do with it. She just went on the Too Much podcast and talked about her breakup from Glenn Powell without naming him, because I believe she was worried about legal action. And her name is Gigi Paris. She is a model, and she dated Glenn Powell before his career absolutely skyrocketed, especially after Top Gun Maverick. And she was along with him for the ride. You know, they went to all of these Hollywood parties, and she was suddenly in this social circle she was unfamiliar with. And she was ride or die for him until his job called for him to play into showmance with Sydney Sweeney, get extremely touchy and flirtatious with his co-star, and play into rumors that they were sleeping together while they were filming in Australia. And this podcast is titled Know Your Worth and On to the Next. Gigi Paris breaks her silence. She kept quiet when the internet thought it had all the answers. And now, 2 years later, Gigi Paris is telling her story on her terms. She breaks her silence for the first time since the very public unraveling of her 4-year relationship with a certain A-list celebrity. But this isn't a tell-all to reopen old wounds. This is a masterclass in self-worth, restraint, and resilience. Cheating rumors, the call that changed everything, and fresh headlines surfacing all over again, Gigi answers the questions that still remain on everyone's mind, but most importantly, she shares her honest experience of what it felt like to have her relationship become PR collateral, why she chose to wait to respond rather than to react, and how she is thriving today. This isn't just a breakup story, it's a story about reclaiming your peace and taking back the narrative. Because yes, sometimes the most graceful thing you can do is say nothing, but the most powerful thing you can do is finally speak. So she didn't name Glenn Powell, but she basically told the audience that he gaslit her into thinking that these flirting rumors were appropriate because it's just what his job calls for, and she should respect that. And she felt deeply betrayed by his public behavior and his refusal to clarify to the public audience that that was not true, that there was no truth to the rumors of this affair. He wanted to keep people guessing, and it actually worked in both his and Sydney Sweeney's favor because Anyone But You made money at the box office, and it boosted both of their careers. And they even made jokes about it on SNL. Sydney Sweeney's relationship survived longer than Glenn Powell's did, but she did break off her engagement to Jonathan Davino just months ago in order to focus on work. And it may have had something to do with the Glenn Powell rumors. Who knows?
There's a lot of jobs that I could never do. There's one job that I could definitely never do, and that's write copy for women's interviews and summits. There's just something so beautifully fictitious about all of it.
Well, let's hear Gigi Paris's account of how this went down.
Gigi Paris.
It's the most like model stage name I've ever heard, but I believe it's her real name.
Press X to doubt.
It's probably her first and middle name.
Frida France.
Yeah.
I had two options. I could either pretend like I was going along with everything and have everyone wonder, like, are they hooking up? Are they not hooking up? Is she okay with this? What the f***? Like, or stand up for myself and say, no, I'm actually not okay with this, and I'm walking away. So that's what I decided to do. It wasn't a way to like monetize the breakup. It wasn't a way to twist the story around. Like, I was shattered. I was actually trying to get a work visa to go over and work alongside my partner because I didn't want to go visit unless I could also focus on my own career, because that was important to me. I'm not going to put everything aside.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'm paying my own bills here. But
Well, you know, with America's lax immigration policy, that work visa was never going to happen, right?
Well, they were going.
yeah,
to
I was waiting
Australia.
for that to happen. And then I saw this hit the media and I was like, hello, like, what's going on here? Like, I was completely blindsided.
Okay.
She also went on to say, I just wanted respect, especially if it's going to be public. Just don't make a fool out of someone you've been with for over 3 years, talking about forever with. And at the end of the day, it was like, work comes first. And if that's the case, power to you, that's your priority. Where are you when you just need to stand up and say, no, I would never cheat on my girlfriend. I wouldn't do that. That's all I needed that needed to be said. And that wasn't said, never once. Just to sell a movie or not, who knows? And I honestly hoped they'd end up together because I was like, at least it would make it worth it for me, you know? I hope they're in love. She hoped that the rumors were true, ultimately, because at least it wouldn't have just been for a movie. It would have been something that, you know, involved Glenn Powell as a person.
I mean, I can't read context clues here for tone for that last part. I'm guessing there's like a slight air of sarcasm to the last part.
Well, I think she was hoping that at least if Glenn Powell cheated on her, it would be something that happened organically from his own feelings and not something that he did for his career, because it's just a movie at the end of the day.
Otherwise,
Like, she didn't want a movie to be what killed her relationship. She at least hoped it would be some sort of human connection that he made with a co-star that's actually organic instead of a calculated move that he made and premeditated.
I'm on her side on this one. Outside of the last comment,
I
there.
completely agree. Yeah.
She handled it perfectly fine, as can be. And I'm one of Glenn Powell's bigger fans. I think Glenn Powell is one of the futures. As an actor, I think Glenn Powell is one of the futures of Hollywood when it comes to picking his roles and maintaining his aura maxing, which is probably why he wouldn't deny this rumor. He chose aura maxing over his girlfriend or his fiance. But, you know, that was a very, outside of the very, very verbose copy that was written beforehand to talk about this, which I'm immediately prejudiced against because it's bloviating and self-important. But her answer was very, very good, I thought. I have no problem with anything she just said.
I completely agree with her perspective. And it's interesting that she didn't bring up the concern of Glenn Powell's career calling for him to do sex scenes with other women or kiss other women or get physical with other women on camera. It seems like she never had an issue with that, but as soon as it encroaches upon his personal life and rumors about their relationship in real life,
that makes sense.
That's when it crossed a line for her, and I completely agree with her. And I also think most people wouldn't be okay with the former. They wouldn't be okay with him kissing or simulating sex with other women on camera.
She's not an actor, so she's not one of the people that falls into the category of like, oh,
it's just business, you know, like I've been there too. Yeah. She wouldn't understand that firsthand, but she was willing to tolerate that as long as he didn't let it trickle into headlines about their personal life. Yeah. But he chose, even after she asked him to clarify that the rumors weren't true, he chose not to clarify because he knew that it would boost the performance of the movie.
Here's the other thing. Like, paradoxically, I'm also, like, all on board for his, like, commitment to the bit.
Yeah, but do that as a single person, you know?
In a perverse way, he proved his commitment to his profession, and unfortunately, she was the collateral damage to that. I think that that approach for him, yes, as a single person would be a much more preferable. But here's the problem. This story has no bite if he's a single person. Then it's just two people hooking up. I guess because she's in a relationship, but there's more bite if they're both in a relationship.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. It's not necessarily that, like, I know there is organic interest in just co-stars falling in love, right? Like, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson, they started dating after they met through Twilight. People loved that, even though there was no rumor that anyone was getting betrayed or cheated on. People are interested in celebrities hooking up, right? That would be interesting regardless. But you're right that there's an extra layer of intrigue when both stars are in long-term relationships with you should also note people who are not in the Hollywood sphere. Like, this girl is a model, but she's not famous. And then Sydney Sweeney's ex-fiance, Jonathan Davino, wealthy, sure, but not famous. He's not from that world. And he was also with Sydney before she had a huge boost in her career and stayed with her through that.
I'm imagining Gigi was like, he was so good as the stockbroker in The Dark Knight Rises.
No, she saw Scream Queens.
That's what it was.
That's what made her fall in love with Glenn Powell. No, it's actually, it's sweet. They were introduced through like mutual friends in an organic way. And I do think it's quite diabolical that he wasted her time like this and, you know, talking with her about being together forever. Unfortunately, it's not just celebrities or actors who do this. There are tons of forever girlfriends out there.
I think she's going to be remembered as a casualty of timing, and that he'll end up getting married and one day and be over.
Well, even just a couple of weeks after Sydney Sweeney's relationship ended publicly, Glenn Powell then invited Sydney Sweeney to join him as a +1 at his sister's wedding.
And they were like, his family loves her. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Just shot
Sick
to the
stuff.
heart. Yeah.
And I'm sure that would be painful for her ex-fiance to learn about as well.
Just imagine the power trip that makes Sydney Sweeney. It's like the 5,000 bars of bathwater soap that she sold doesn't give her the high that getting invited to Glenn Powell's family wedding.
You know what? I like the idea that the bathwater soap deal is what ended her relationship.
Nah.
She was like, no, like
I told her
I need to sell
I
soap.
said you can sell the soap, but it can't have the hole in the middle. And she said, no. Has to have the dick slot in the middle. And I said, that's it. We're done.
Enough. Yeah. And I guess, you know, true justice would be if Jonathan Davino and Gigi Paris got together after all of this fallout.
Yeah,
that would be the ultimate revenge for them.
Who was it? The two newscasters, Amy Roebuck and what's his name?
What was his name? Like Tyler or something?
But didn't their exes that they cheated on each other with end up together? Yeah,
they had an affair together, the two news anchors, and then their respective spouses ended up together as well. I can't even go into detail, but there was a family friend, a girl that I went to school with for a while, whose parents were her and her friend, her best friend, their parents were like best friends for the longest time.
Like the two sets of parents?
Yes. Okay. And then an affair occurred between two of them. And then after the two had a baby and got married, after everyone got divorced and the two that had an affair got married and had a baby, then their ex-spouses ended up together. Yeah.
Why are all these people such
insane?
Why are
so
they
it's
all
not just
such
Hollywood.
Bad people?
It's not just Hollywood. There is the same like debauchery in any small town. You're just not going to see it in People magazine.
They're all such bad people.
Yeah. And you know, I think it's a smart move, and Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have openly talked about the fact that they colluded on this together. I just think play the media as a single person, you know, use that to your advantage as a single person when there's no person who's actually getting screwed over by it.
Yeah.
Or at least be open with that person that you're with about what you expect from them.
Yep.
Because she clearly was, as she said, blindsided by the whole situation, and he didn't even do her the courtesy of clarifying privately, let alone publicly. So yeah, I think that's some really sick shit, and I agree with her perspective, but I also think there's no power, as they put it, in speaking out. Sometimes actually the powerful and graceful thing to do is keeping your L's to yourself and not going public with it.
Yeah.
Because you're just reviving the story all over again in order to make him look bad, and that proves that you're not emotionally over it yet.
Yeah.
If you haven't resolved it, you're going to want to drag him down with you.
The stories you find are so much more depressing than the stories that...
I mean, I think it's kind of funny, like, at the end of the day.
It's interesting, and at the end of the day, they're kind of they're victims of the industry they chose to work in a way, and in their own bad choices. Their own bad choices in an industry that encourages it.
Well, I would like to see Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell get together.
We'll have to wait and see.
Those rumors are still circulating, but then people are saying Sydney Sweeney is just repeating the same cycle with her new co-star Brandon Skenlar, I believe his name is.
Skenlar, yeah.
Or he like looks like Glenn Powell from Wish.
That's a
So
rough
she's
one.
doing the same flirty videos with him.
I mean, Glenn Powell looks
feeding
like,
into those rumors.
I know Glenn Powell is like Glenn Powell from Wish if he doesn't have the right haircut.
I mean, I think he looks like a capybara. That's my opinion, but...
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.